Today's episode of Outside the Rack is brought to you by Kinetic Performance, the makers of the Gymaware. In today's world of strength and conditioning, data collections become the utmost of importance, and that's exactly where Gymaware separates itself from the competition. Because when we're sitting there and looking to collect data, what data are you actually collecting? And are the numbers you're looking at fitting into the exercises that you're utilizing? And even more so, are they going to answer the questions that you're looking for? Looking at different ways that you are moving the barbell through peak and mean, both velocity and power, is really what separates Gymaware from the competition. Being able to understand what your ballistic exercises are doing separate to what your strength exercises are doing really allows you to program at a much more specific level for your athletes. So hop on over to kinetic.com.au to see what Evan and his team have in store for you today. The world of strength and conditioning is filled with some fantastic practitioners that are always searching for more. But more what? What are strength and conditioning coaches searching for to better their ability to prepare their athletes? Well, what about cutting edge information? Or a place where you can find different opinions from forward-thinking coaches on what you're doing, how you're doing, and try to get feedback to be better for your athletes? Or what about a place where you'll find like-minded coaches that can provide solid coaching advice and career development for you as you progress through your career as a strength and conditioning professional? Well, this is exactly why we built the Strength Coach Network. You'll have access to exclusive monthly content on top of the sensationally active forum that we have where you can communicate with coaches all over the world to find those answers that you're looking for to help you be a better practitioner for your athletes. So make sure you hop on over to strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPs, that's strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPS, and get your 48-hour trial for only $1. I look forward to seeing you in the Strength Coach Network.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the 49th episode of Outside the Rack, brought to you by Kinetic Performance, the makers of Gymaware. In this show, we're just going to try to dive a little deeper into the minds of some of the top practitioners in the world of sport performance, to learn a little bit more about who they actually are and how they got to where they are today. Today, we are joined by the head of S&C at Powering Through, William Wayland. William, thanks for being with us today, man.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Yeah, man, it's good to catch up a little bit. It's good to see you. Glad to hear you're doing well. And before we get going too far, brother, who is William Wayland?
William Wayland is a strength and conditioning consultant for the PGA European Tour. He owns his own gym in Chelmsford in Essex in the UK, where we offer an array of performance services, group fitness, and yeah, we've been doing this now for 3 years, and we're looking forward to doing it for many more. And I think that just about sums. That's as brief as I can make that question. That people ask you that question, you're like, summing yourself up is always a horrible question. But hopefully that does it.
No, man, yeah, 100%. And a guy who is a bit of an author, and a guy who's got programs out that I can attest to are fantastic on his website. So a guy who's kind of doing a little bit of it all, bro.
Definitely trying to, things have changed. So, some of us have had to pivot a little bit into doing other stuff. I do like writing regularly. That's something I find quite cathartic. You get a chance to get some of that implicit knowledge down on paper, so you can actually sort of get through your thought processes as to what you're doing. We're working on a few things as well going forwards with Terence, who you had on the other day. So we're working on something together. So, it's just trying to create content that we think people want,
No doubt, man. Because it's as Kick and Wing said in Joe Dirt, man. Or Joe Dirt said to Kick and Wing, it's not about you, it's about the consumer. But as a guy, and you don't give yourself enough credit for your work in the fight game either. So we can come back to that in a little bit and talk about that. But a guy who's been around the fight game, working with pro golfers, and again, writing, digging in, trying to learn and be better. I'm excited for this. Describe for us, if you could, a learning situation that brought about an epiphany in your career.
So I had to think about this because there's probably been a couple. There's probably been more than one, because I feel what we do is we iterate ourselves, right? There are always different versions of ourselves as we're going along. And I guess one of the biggest ones was, and this is sort of kind of early in my career, was getting away from stimulus for athletes as a having to look a specific way. So what I mean by this is you think about training max strength, for instance. Most people instantly think of back squat, deadlift, bench press, because that's the powerlifting convention, and or Olympic lifting, for instance, because those are the conventions we've been taught for a long time. And then suddenly, like, wait a minute, I can apply stress of greater or similar magnitude, but in a fashion that works for the population of people I'm working with. So, because at the end of the day, the body doesn't understand movements. It doesn't, in terms of trying to apply systemic stress, definitely. So a big change was a lot of what I've taken from Cal Dietz's work, like a big proponent of the hand-supported split squat. I think I've managed to encourage a lot of people to at least give it a try, and using that as like a primary, a heavy low body stimulus. Hand-supported squatting, the old Hatfield squat, hopefully in some way I've gotten more people into using that as a it doesn't look like a squat. It's not a contested movement, in any way, shape or form, but it's a great way to apply stimulus. So occasionally I'll catch flack because I'll be doing stuff on social media and it doesn't look like what people expect. It's not a squat, it's not a bench press, it's usually something where I'm toying with something or trying something different. And at the end of the day, it's like, well, all we'll be looking for is stimulus. That's the key, is a stressor. So if someone, I've got an athlete doing, a super maximal hand supported squat with 200 of their 1RM or something silly like that. I think 150 is the heaviest we've ever gone, but you know what I'm saying. And just giving them a dose of stress that hopefully will be multiplicative later on in terms of like benefits to that individual. So people will freak out. Like I've even tried it with golfers, getting golfers doing heavy super maximal work, because at the end of the day, it's a very acute dose of stress that we hope will manifest a benefit further down the line. And, it just doesn't look it breaks the convention people are used to seeing, because at the end of the day, stress is what matters. The tools you use are just that, getting there. So yeah, basically abandoning conventional sort of power lift or Olympic weightlifting for just stress seeking, as opposed to like being shackled to a conventional strength sport, I guess it would be the biggest thing.
I dig it, man. And it's funny you bring up the hand supported stuff. Really good friend of mine and a guy that you've talked to a lot has been a big proponent of that too. And it's Chase Campbell. We talk about that quite often. I know that you guys have touched base on that a few times too.
Yeah. Chase is awesome. And he, like, we've spoken a little bit about it, and we occasionally send each other stuff where we're sort of toying with ideas or getting away from sort of lifting convention, just seeing, because he the other reason I like Chase is because, much like myself, we're willing to experiment on ourselves. He's always willing to give it a go, and I'm a big proponent of, I get quoted, eating your own restaurant, at least be willing to give some of it a go. I'm not saying you have to be a badass or you have to be super strong, but at least be willing to get your hands dirty every now and again,
Yeah, no doubt, man. I can tell you this though, dude, when you get 40, it gets harder.
well, I'm 37, so I'm just about holding together. So
yeah, just wait, man. That AGE thing it's an SOB. It catches up to you. There's days where, man, I feel old. Things hurt. But nah, man, you do. You put out a lot of really great content. You have, a lot of really good experience in 2 specific areas of sport, but are doing things in rugby as well and other sports in the UK. So this one will be a fun one for me too. If William could ask one question and he knows he would get the answer, what would that question be and why?
so yeah, this is like, you can get silly with a question like this, and ask something that's sort of, that would be beneficial to yourself personally. But like, I guess and it speaks to maybe like a bit of a Stoic question, and that is like, how much of it is you? And what I mean by that is sport is really phenomenological. So you can be a great strength and conditioning coach. You can work with any athlete, and you can do your job really, really, really well. But that athlete goes and loses. Now, is that a reflection on the quality of you as a strength coach? Maybe, not necessarily, because as long as you went out, I guess, and did the best job you could, whether they win or lose is perhaps not indicative, unless you did something horrendously bad and maybe sort of hurt them or something. But it's not necessarily indicative of your quality as a coach. And strength and conditioning coaches have to live with this, but also I guess sports coaches too, but I guess the sports coach is more directly responsible. There's a good grade of responsibility there that perhaps the strength coach doesn't have. So yeah, I guess the how much is your responsibility? How much isn't your responsibility? How much do you need to apply? How much don't you need to apply? And that's the question I think that should be keeping a lot of strength coaches up at night, is that, how much can I influence the outcome versus how much can, and I think as you get older, you relax more and you start to realize, well, the outcome is what the outcome is. Obviously people are depending on you to help influence parameters for the performance, but at the end of the day, if someone goes out and you try your best, they try their best but still come up short, then what more can you ask of yourself? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's
100%.
It's that question of how much value do you bring, and how seriously should you take that, and it's something, I guess, as I've got older, I've learned to relax more. Sometimes I still can't, but you learn to relax more. And if you do make mistakes, I guess you try and iterate yourself. You make sure you don't make them again. You improve and become a better version of yourself, But there's a saying I really like, is you see it on social media quite a lot, is victory has 1,000 parents, but defeat is an orphan. So when someone wins, suddenly everyone comes out of the woodwork to put their flag in the ground and say, I was clearly a massive influence on this outcome, whereas if someone loses, suddenly they're bereft of support, so they might put up a post or something and say, hey, so-and-so tried super hard. It's particularly noticeable in the fight game, I guess, but does that make sense?
No, 100%, man. I think that, the fight game, just weight cut, right? Like, if that doesn't go perfect, everything could go. But I mean, even like, as chaotic as team sport is, like, I guess that's like the question that we've always been asking. What Bob Alejo is getting at is like, how do we actually evaluate ourselves and know if we were or were not doing a good enough job, and this, that, and third with it. I think that's something that still is really gray.
Yeah. And I think for me, the reason I think about that question is because the Stoic philosophy has been such a big influence on my approach as a coach. The question that you always ask yourself there is what can I control? What is outside of my control and therefore not worth worrying about? And I guess it's trying to figure out which of these particular things, what matters and what doesn't matter, and this isn't the same. It's not the same as indifference, but it's trying to grasp, well, what's worth my concern, what's not worth my concern, and occasionally people get stuck, don't they? And they start giving too much concern to things that really are outside of their influence, and you're always going to be unhappy if you end up doing that,
No doubt about it. And I think that that's a lesson that a lot of coaches can heed a lot of strength from, because you trip about the wrong thing too long, boys and girls, you're going to turn into graybeard. And that's why you're going to look like this before you turn 40 like I did, because you're just, if you trip over everything, you're eventually all you're doing is falling, right?
Well, this is the thing. There's the other question is you might be able to answer this. So how much stuff retrospectively were you worried about in the past that now you're like, that wasn't worth worrying about?
Oh my gosh, dude, that's there is not enough booze and cigars in your house for us to go through all of those, my man. Like that conversation would be like, that's like a week-long trip to a resort. Where it would be like, let's talk about just the first 2 years in day one.
Let's book something.
Yeah, man. Shoot, next year at the seminar, we'll sit down. If this COVID thing ever lets us travel, if you guys could ever get into the country, and then if they'd ever let you back out, dude, of course. But yeah, I think that's a great point. Because again, like, I think that the best example of that is like people that have been in these games long enough that you have athletes come back and like they say like, oh, you've gone soft. And it's like, no, it's not that I've gone soft. It's just that like that stuff that I used to lose my mind over before, like it's just not worth it. Like it's like the ulcer that I had because of that, like it's just not, there's no point.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
But speaking of trips and speaking of catching up, you do a lot, man. And you're on the road a lot, too, with the tour, which unfortunately right now is a little bit of a unique situation. But with all these things, man, owning a business, the extra teams on the side, members, pros, the tour, there's got to be some way that William comes back to zero. So what's your escape, bro?
I guess it's three things, and I guess you can multiply these against the time it takes to enjoy them. So first would be like, and this one people always find this really unintuitive, is cigars. Like I've shared with a few people. I don't put it up on my social media very often. I occasionally put it up on my private one because people get real judgy. But cigar smoking, and we know that like Mike Badongo is pretty keen on a cigar, as am I. And I don't know. I think I don't know where it really started. I was given one by a friend at a wedding. And after that, and I think it took me about 40 minutes to smoke it. And it was the fact, it was just like time not doing anything else. I don't think I picked up my phone once. And it's just that time spent sort of considering and just taking the moment out. And I think that's what it does. It gives you something to do with your hands, and because there's like a ritual to it. So you cut it, you smell it, whatever, and then sort of light it, and that takes a little bit of time. And then once you're going, you puff it once every sort of 30 seconds to a minute, and you just take your time over it. And then you learn, much like wine or coffee, different cigars have different flavor palettes, stuff like that. So it's, and it'll take 40 minutes to an hour on it with a decent sized one, and it's just like sitting in the garden and doing that is like nice sort of a little bit of time out. So that's one thing. The other thing that I can't do at the moment, though, that I'm missing a lot, to the point where I was driving my wife mad because I was looking at buying a sauna for my house because I really, really enjoy saunaing. And when everything was open, I was saunaing at least 2 times a week. And again, I think that's a similar type of thing, is that you're in there for like, it'll take me sort of an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to do a whole sauna routine. I'll go in for 20 minutes, cold shower, wait until the heart rate goes back to normal, and then head back in again. And I got to the point where I was able to sort of sauna for 20, 25 minutes around and was getting really good at it. It was really good for my cardio, actually. It was one of the biggest things I noticed. But also for recovery, relaxation, especially if you go with a friend and you just chat, that's really nice. But again, you don't have your phone with you. You don't have the technology with you. So that's something you don't have. Although people keep bringing their phones into the sauna, which is probably one of the most irritating habits I've ever seen. And I don't know if those lithium-ion batteries are explosive, but I always worry when someone brings a phone into a sauna if they're asking for trouble. But like you're away from your phone, so that's great as well. And then again, it's kind of there's a ritual to that. There's a ritual to the sauna, and it's nice, especially if you do it twice a week or more. And then the third thing that people, I guess, if you visit my private Instagram page, is architecture and history, something I really, really enjoy. And people occasionally DM me going, why do you keep posting pictures of buildings and stuff? And it's like, because you ever go to an old Europe, I don't know if you've ever traveled to Europe yourself. So you go to some of the old European cities, you sit at a cafe and just sit and take it in, and look at the buildings. And there's something to that I find enormously rewarding. So one of the benefits of actually traveling a lot on tour, especially around Europe, is that sometimes I'll get a morning or a little bit of time where I can take a moment to go out, visit the town or the city wherever the golf tournament's hosted, and just see some buildings or some architecture. So like places like Budapest, Paris. I was in Geneva recently. Places like that I find enormously enriching, just to sit and wander around. Like I'm one of these people, like I won't necessarily visit a museum, but I just enjoy wandering around a city, taking the place in, and just like seeing the architecture, things like that. I find it, enormously rewarding. It's why part of the reason why, I used to really like going to London, although now there's a lot more steel and glass going up, so it's becoming a far less pleasant place to visit. But yeah, like that as well. So, I guess, Kate, like I haven't been anywhere for a couple of months now, and I'm itching to travel somewhere, and see some buildings or visit a few museums or something like that. But yeah, those three things kind of, are what I enjoy indulging in a little bit. I try and keep the cigar smoking to a minimum. However, it's like probably only a couple a year. I can see how they can become addictive.
Yeah, dude. I dig that last one too, man. Like, we've had the opportunity to get over there a few times, and with playing and all this and that. And yeah, man, there's something to just sitting in a square and having a coffee or a sandwich and just kind of looking around and like taking it all in. That's pretty rad.
Yeah, absolutely. Like one of my favorite things is like when I travel with my wife. She says there's always time for a coffee. And what she basically means is there's always time just to take a moment, sit down, and just take in a town square or whatever. Just people watch, that type of thing. There's something to be said for that. It's enormously rewarding. And one of the beautiful things about Europe is cafe culture is pretty much everywhere, so you can get that experience everywhere. In the UK, we don't do it so much. More now, but I think it's because the weather's lousy here. So the idea of sitting outside is very, 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 very foreign to us. So it's something the continental Europeans do. So yeah, but that type of thing is great for me. Like there's so many wonderful small and large cities in Europe that are great for that. So and I don't think you can ever really visit them all.
No. I mean, you could. It's just
take you a long time.
Yeah, and a lot more money than I'll ever make. But no, brother, it's great to see you. Great to catch up, man. Glad you're doing awesome.
Good to catch up.
Yeah, so happy we could do this, man. We'll be in touch soon. Cheers.